The odd thing about social anxiety is that a 2-minute chat can feel like standing under a spotlight with a microphone you never asked for. And if English is not your first language, that spotlight can seem even brighter.
Yes, Evelyn. A person may want connection very much and still feel frightened by the moment it arrives. They may know what they want to say beforehand, then meet someone new and suddenly think, oh no, my brain has left the building. That gap between wanting to speak and being able to speak can be deeply frustrating.
And people often call that being shy, don't they? But shyness and social anxiety are not necessarily the same thing.
Right. Shyness can mean feeling a little reserved or quiet, especially at first. Social anxiety involves a more intense fear of being watched, judged, or evaluated. It can happen while meeting strangers, answering in class, interviewing for work, speaking to a manager, or even asking a cashier a simple question.
So the key word is not simply nervous. It is intense, persistent, and disruptive.
Exactly. Many people feel nervous before a presentation. That is ordinary human equipment. Apparently, our brains still think a meeting room might contain a tiger. Social anxiety becomes a serious concern when the fear is hard to control, lasts for months, and starts interfering with work, school, relationships, or other important parts of life.
What might that feel like in the moment? Because I feel anxious is true, but it can sound a little broad.
There are some very useful phrases. Someone might say, my heart is racing, meaning their heartbeat feels very fast. Or, my mind goes blank, meaning they cannot access words they knew a moment earlier. They might say, I feel self-conscious. I feel on edge. Or, I'm afraid of being judged.
I appreciate that my mind goes blank does not mean someone lacks intelligence. It means anxiety has crowded the room.
That is such an important distinction. The person may have prepared carefully. They may know the vocabulary, understand the topic, and have a thoughtful answer. But when attention turns toward them, anxiety can interfere with concentration and memory. Their body reacts as though the social situation is dangerous, even when it is objectively safe.
And then the physical symptoms can become their own source of worry.
They can. A person may feel hot in the face, sweat, shake, speak very quietly, or feel sick in the stomach. Then they notice those symptoms and think, everyone can see I'm nervous. That thought increases the anxiety, which can make the symptoms stronger. It is a very efficient little worry machine, unfortunately.
So there is a cycle. Fear of judgment, physical anxiety, more fear because of the symptoms, and then avoidance.
Yes. Avoidance can bring quick relief. If you skip the party, do not make the call, or stay silent in class, the immediate discomfort drops. But the brain may learn, good thing we escaped. That situation must have been dangerous. Over time, that can make the next social situation feel even more threatening.
Let's take a simple example. Meeting someone at a gathering. A person says, "Hi, nice to meet you. What do you do?" That sounds ordinary, but it may not feel ordinary to the anxious person.
Not at all. They may be rehearsing every possible answer while smiling politely. They might worry, what if I say the wrong thing? What if there is an awkward silence? What if they do not like me? Meanwhile, the other person may simply be wondering whether there are snacks nearby. Our anxious predictions can be much harsher than reality.
Awkward silence is a useful phrase here, but a brief pause is not proof that a conversation has failed.
Precisely. Conversations naturally have pauses. A few seconds of quiet do not require an emergency exit through a decorative plant. it can help to prepare a couple of neutral questions. How do you know the host? Have you been here before? Or what kind of work do you do? These are simple bridges, not a demand to become the life of the party.
That distinction matters. Preparation can help, but perfectionism can turn preparation into another burden.
Yes. The goal is not a flawless conversation with sparkling jokes and perfect grammar. The goal is to participate in an ordinary human exchange. Someone can say hello, ask one question, listen, and respond simply. That counts. A conversation does not need to become a television interview just because two people are standing near the same bowl of chips.
English learners may feel extra pressure to answer quickly, especially in a class or group discussion. What phrases can give them a little breathing room?
A few short sentences are very powerful. I need a moment to think. Could you repeat the question, please? I'm not sure, but my first thought is, or I would like to add something. These phrases buy time while showing that the person is still engaged. You do not need advanced vocabulary to communicate thoughtfully.
I'm not sure, but my first thought is, it makes room for an imperfect answer.
And imperfect answers are allowed, Evelyn. In fact, they are most of the answers humans have ever produced. Someone in a group might say, I think the main problem is communication. People may understand the same situation differently. That is clear, useful, and completely acceptable. Speaking slowly is not a failure. Taking a moment is not a failure either.
Social anxiety can also show up in situations people might not immediately recognize as social.
Very much so. Some people fear eating or drinking while others watch. Others worry about signing a document, using a public restroom, making a phone call, asking for help, reading aloud, or performing music. The common thread is concern about being observed and possibly judged. The situation may look small from outside, but feel enormous inside.
And people often develop little protective habits in those situations.
Those are sometimes called safety behaviors. Someone might avoid eye contact, speak so softly they are nearly a weather forecast in the next county, memorize every sentence, repeatedly check their appearance, hold a phone to look busy, or stay close to one trusted friend. These actions can feel protective, but they may also keep attention fixed on anxiety.
That sounds tricky because we do not want to shame people for coping, but we also do not want coping to become a cage.
That is exactly the tension. Telling someone to face their biggest fear immediately can be overwhelming and unhelpful. On the other hand, total avoidance can strengthen the fear. A gentler approach is gradual exposure, approaching feared situations in small, manageable steps, often with support and guidance.
What would gradual exposure look like in everyday life?
It could begin with brief eye contact, then greeting a neighbor, then asking one simple question in a shop, and later joining a small discussion. The steps should be challenging, but possible. This is not a competition, and nobody gets a medal for choosing the most terrifying task on day one. The pace matters because people are building confidence through experience.
There is a fictional student I keep thinking about. Someone who knows the answer in English class, but never raises their hand. What would be a realistic first step?
Not a 10-minute speech in front of the whole school. Their first step could be saying one sentence to a partner. Next, asking the teacher one question after class. Later, reading 3 sentences to a small group. Each step lets the person learn something important. I felt anxious, but I managed it.
And afterward, they can compare what they feared with what actually happened.
Yes. They might ask, what did I predict? Maybe everyone will laugh, I will freeze forever, and the ceiling will probably collapse. Then, what actually happened? Perhaps they spoke quietly, paused, finished the sentence, and nobody reacted badly. This is not about blaming yourself for being afraid. It is about checking fear against evidence.
I think that idea is gentle. Anxiety is not being put on trial. It is being examined with curiosity.
Well said. The aim is not to force yourself to feel calm before acting. Often, people discover they can take a step while still feeling anxious. Then they learn that the feared result is less likely than expected, or less catastrophic if it does happen. Anxiety is a feeling. It is not a command that must be obeyed.
Sometimes the most difficult part is telling another person what is happening. What are some clear ways to ask for support?
A person could say, I want to join the conversation, but I feel anxious. Or, please ask me one simple question. If I become quiet, please give me a little time. Other useful phrases include, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need a short break. Could we talk somewhere quieter? And please be patient with me.
Please do not speak for me immediately. Seems important too. Support should not mean taking over.
Exactly. A helpful friend can make space without grabbing the steering wheel. They might ask, would you like advice, or would you like me just to listen? Sometimes someone needs practical help. Sometimes they need understanding first. Asking that question respects their independence, and it prevents well-meant advice from arriving like an uninvited marching band.
What kinds of responses tend not to help, even when people mean well?
Just relax is a classic example. If relaxation could be switched on by command, we would all be remarkably serene at airports. Saying there is nothing to be afraid of, or everyone feels that way, can make someone feel dismissed. Better responses are, I can see this is difficult. You do not have to explain everything at once, and we can take this one step at a time.
It may also help to remember that this is common, not a personal weakness.
Absolutely. Estimates differ depending on how researchers define and measure it, but social anxiety affects a meaningful share of people in a given year. That does not mean every nervous person has a disorder. It does mean that intense social fear is recognized, widespread, and treatable. People are not broken because a conversation feels harder for them.
Yet it can stay hidden for a long time, partly because the condition itself makes asking for help feel risky.
Yes, someone may assume this is just my personality, or worry that a clinician will judge them. That can delay support for years while avoidance affects school, work, friendships, and relationships. It is a painful irony. The fear of being judged can make it harder to seek help from people trained not to judge.
When should someone consider professional support rather than trying to carry it alone?
If fear is persistent, difficult to control, and interfering with daily life, speaking with a qualified mental health professional can be useful. A diagnosis should come from a trained professional, not a social media clip with dramatic music and a pointer arrow. Culture and circumstances matter too. Eye contact, silence, and directness have different meanings in different communities.
And treatment can be practical, not just abstract conversation about feelings.
Very practical. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, can help people identify anxious predictions, examine evidence, practice new responses, and gradually approach feared situations. It may involve role play, communication practice, and exposure exercises. Some people may also benefit from medication, prescribed and monitored by a qualified clinician. The right path varies from person to person.
That also explains why throw yourself into your worst fear immediately is not very wise advice.
Correct. Online advice can offer useful personal stories, but it cannot diagnose someone or design a safe plan for them. Pressure and shame tend to make anxiety worse. Informed, gradual support is generally safer. The goal is not to prove bravery through suffering. It is to create enough safety and practice for life to become larger than avoidance.
Before we finish, I want to return to English learners. If someone remembers only a few sentences, what should they keep ready?
Keep them short and usable. I feel anxious. My mind is going blank. I need a moment to think. Could you repeat the question? I want to talk, but I need more time. Please be patient with me. And I would like support. Perfect grammar is not the prize here. Communication is.
So perhaps the small goal is not become confident forever by Thursday. It is something where human. Say hello to one colleague. Ask one question. Or stay in a conversation for a little longer.
Yes, Evelyn. A person may still feel anxious while doing it, and that is okay. One small step does not solve everything, but it can begin a different pattern. Less hiding, more honest communication, and more evidence that anxiety does not get the final vote. Tiny steps may look modest, but they can carry people surprisingly far.
That feels like a kind place to leave it. You do not have to feel perfect to take part. Thanks for listening, and until next time, be patient with yourself.